Let me say something that might feel uncomfortable but deeply familiar. INFJs don't burn out because they love too much. They burn out because they adapt too well. And when INFJs are in relationships with someone who has ADD, especially long-term, especially into their 40s and 50s, that adaptation can slowly turn into self-abandonment. Not dramatic, not explosive, quiet, invisible, easy to justify. This video isn't about blame. It's not about diagnosing your partner, and it's not about painting ADD as a flaw or INFJs as victims. It's about naming a pattern that almost never gets named because the people living inside it are too empathetic to call it out. Right now, as I'm recording this, I am not speaking from theory. I'm speaking from lived experience, from real moments, from real exhaustion, from real love that exists alongside real imbalance. If you're an INFJ and you've ever felt emotionally tired in a relationship you still care about, if you've ever felt like the most responsible person in the room without ever volunteering for the role, stay with me. Because what you're experiencing isn't a personal failure. It has a neurological explanation, and more importantly, it has a way forward. Most relationship advice completely fails INFJs because it treats personality and neurodivergence as separate issues. But in real life, they interact constantly. INFJs are wired to track patterns over time. You notice emotional shifts before words change. You remember conversations long after others forget them. You feel responsible for continuity, for meaning, for making sure things don't quietly fall apart. ADD brains, on the other hand, are wired around interest-based attention. Focus is not governed by importance, but by stimulation. Memory is often contextual rather than linear. Time is not felt the same way. Executive functioning fluctuates. Neither of these systems is wrong. But when they come together without external structure, one partner often becomes the organizer, the reminder, the emotional archivist, the continuity keeper. And INFJs slide into that role without even realizing it, not because they're asked to, because they notice the gaps. If you've ever thought, I understand why they struggle, but why am I the one holding everything together? That question isn't selfish, it's diagnostic. How over-adaptation begins. INFJs don't sit down and decide to overfunction. It happens automatically. You notice something didn't get done, so you do it. You notice a conversation was forgotten, so you bring it back gently. You notice emotional distance, so you bridge it. At first, this feels like love, like maturity, like being the bigger person. But over time, you stop being a partner and start being the system. You remember appointments, you track deadlines, you hold emotional context, you smooth transitions, you compensate quietly so the relationship can keep moving forward. And because INFJs are deeply empathetic, you don't just compensate behaviorally, you compensate emotionally. You explain their intentions to yourself before they ever have to. You lower your expectations without renegotiating the structure. You tell yourself, this is what understanding looks like. What you don't notice at first is that your needs are shrinking in the process. If you're listening right now and realizing you've been calling self-silencing compassion, pause here. This matters. Let's talk about what's actually happening in the ADD brain, because understanding this is essential, but it has to be done without romanticizing or excusing the impact. ADD is not a lack of intelligence, it's not laziness, it's not a character flaw. It's a neurodevelopmental difference centered primarily in the brain's dopamine system and prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for planning, prioritizing, sequencing, emotional regulation, working memory, and sustained attention. In ADD brains, this area does not consistently activate in response to importance alone. Instead, it responds to novelty, urgency, or emotional intensity. That's why someone with ADD can hyper-focus on something interesting for hours and still forget something deeply important to their partner. It's not that the importance isn't real, it's that the neurological signal doesn't hold. Working memory is another major factor. A DD brains often struggle to hold multiple pieces of information in mind at once, especially when emotions are involved. This means conversations can feel resolved in the moment, but lose continuity over time. Now let's talk about aging. In the 40s and 50s, ADD symptoms often become more visible, not less. Cognitive fatigue increases. Hormonal shifts impact dopamine regulation. The mental energy required to mask symptoms decreases. Strategies that once worked, like sheer effort or last-minute adrenaline, stop being enough. So from the ADD partner's perspective, they may genuinely feel like they're trying harder than ever. From the INFJ's perspective, it feels like things are slipping more than ever. This is where empathy and exhaustion collide, because INFJs understand what's happening neurologically, but they're also the ones absorbing the consequences. Here's the truth most people skip. Understanding the cause does not erase the impact. Emotional reality for INFJs. Over time, INFJs start to feel something they have trouble naming: loneliness inside partnership. You may hear sincere apologies, you may hear genuine intention, you may even see short bursts of change. But what you're missing is consistency, continuity, the feeling that someone else is holding the thread with you. You start to feel like the only adult in the room, emotionally and logistically. And because INFJs are loyal, reflective, and meaning-driven, you don't leave at the first sign of imbalance. You wait, you explain, you adapt again. Until one day you realize you're more tired than angry. That's the danger zone. The goal is not to stop being empathetic. The goal is to stop being the entire infrastructure of the relationship. Systems need to live outside your body. Calendars, written agreements, automation, therapy, coaching, external reminders. Love is not meant to replace structure. You also have to name impact without cushioning it into invisibility. Saying how something affects you is not an attack, it's information. And perhaps most importantly, INFJs have to stop confusing endurance with maturity. Staying quiet is not always strength. Sometimes it's fear of disruption. INFJs don't over-adapt because they're weak. They over-adapt because they're capable. But capability without reciprocity slowly erodes identity. Understanding ADD is important. Understanding yourself is non-negotiable. If this video put language to something you've been carrying silently, I want you to do 3 things. Subscribe, because this channel exists to name the emotional and psychological patterns people live inside but rarely see reflected. Share this video, not to call anyone out, but to help someone feel less alone in a dynamic they can't quite explain. And if you want a deeper understanding of INFJ cognition, emotional processing, and internal architecture, explore my book, Inside the Mind of an INFJ. This video is free. Understanding each other better is priceless. And if you're an INFJ who has been over-adapting quietly, let this be the moment you stop disappearing to keep the peace. You matter too.